Many seek the path to victory, but only one can stand glorious over all. From the Badlands come the orcs and goblins, a green tide of brutal creatures that must be stopped.
Hello and welcome to another Total War Warhammer guide. Today we're looking at Azhag the Slughterer and his lovely cute pet, the Wyvern Skullmuncha. Now if you don't know what a wyvern is, it's basically like a sort of lesser dragon. It's still scary as shit, but it's not quite up there with the power of a dragon. So Azhag the Slughterer is an interesting character because he's a bit fighty, but he can also cast some amazing magic spells. He carries his, I can't remember the name of his sword, but he's also got the Iron Crown, which is the green glowy thing on his head. So we're going to go through his abilities quickly, and then we'll see him in action. So first off, he's a spellcaster. Great, he can cast spells. He's armoured, so won't get affected from sort of small arms fire, small weapons. He does armour piercing himself, so he can do damage against those armoured targets. He also causes terror, which is basically a thing in the game for big, usually monstrous creatures and like things like steam tanks, which are just scary as shit if you're getting charged. And basically a unit that can cause terror, making its melee target root for a short time. Units that cause terror are immune to terror and fear themselves. So this is really good as you charge in. They get a small amount of fear, and it just helps you destroy the unit or break the unit. That really helps with the breaking especially. So he's got 70 armour, not quite as much as Grimgor. I think Grimgor had 120 armour, but Grimgor is a much sort of fightier guy. 72 leadership, which is okay. It's orcs and goblins. That is their biggest downfall, is lack of leadership. So you don't really want to send him off on his own thing, because even an Azhag the Slughterer will break if he's under too much fire or facing too many units. He's very quick, 100 speed, of course. He's riding a fucking great dragon, so of course he is. Attack and defense is okay. His weapon strength is really good, 480, so he still does a lot of damage, and he's got a charge bonus, really good charge bonus of 80. So if we look at his abilities, he's got 25% missile resist, which is really helpful, so he doesn't get taken down early. He causes fear and terror, as we discussed before. He encourages troops around him, like all heroes and leaders. That bonus spreads over a sort of 30-40 metre radius and helps them with their leadership. I love the orcs. He's got an augment called Get On With It. And basically it's a constant spell, so it's almost like a passive if you played other games. And all the troops within 30 metres of him get a 4% charge bonus. So if you're going in en masse, this is the perfect sort of character to go with them. So let's have a look at his spells. First off, he's got, this is also a constant and also a passive. And basically, there's a thing called power in the games, which is like mana if you've played the tabletop game. And he's got 23. The game starts with 20, or this skirmish mode starts with 23 power dice in the pool. So what happens is that as you cast spells, each one costs an amount of power, and then it gradually increases as you go, regenerates as you go on. Using this character means that that's going to speed up a lot quicker. Now, the big daddy of them all, the purple son of Xeris, yeah, that one, is a ground-targeted vortex that appears, and this is really perfect spell. It doesn't do damage, but it does a small amount of damage. But the main thing it does is disrupts the enemy, because it moves randomly. I'll show it to you shortly, but it moves randomly and disrupts the enemy. It's superb. We'll go into these more detail as I show you them. So the next one is an augment spell that casts on an ally up to 200 meters away. So that's really good, and it gives them plus leadership, and that means they can cause terror. Absolutely fantastic. Doom and Darkness, which is a hex, which is kind of like a debuff on an enemy 200 meters away, and it gives them minus leadership. So if you need to break that all-important unit, especially in an Leech unit that you normally might have high leadership, this is the sort of spell for them. Next up, you've got Soul Blight, which is another hex, 200 meters away, can affect units, or you can hit the ground with it. Everything within 30 meters, minus 8 leadership, minus 15 armor, and they do less damage, whether ranged or close combat, this is one of the most powerful spells. And it's only 9 power, so it's a little bit less than the other ones we were looking at. Next up, we've got Spirit Leech, which is a direct damage spell, and this is really good against heroes, champions, or at a push, like heavily armoured elite units that might only have 3 or 4 in that unit. This is your sort of attack on them. It's a very powerful spell. It's rubbish against multiple, like larger units, but superb. So another direct damage spell is the Fate of Boona, which is the opposite. It's basically a 100-meter spell. It casts on an enemy unit, and it basically sucks the life force out of them over 20 seconds. It's kind of like a damage overtime or dot spell that does really good damage against big, large units of enemies. So that's fantastic. It's one of my favourites. Next up, we've got the normal sort of generally stuff, which is the Foe Seeker, which you can cast on himself, which gives him a charge bonus, a speed, and a vigour bonus, which is really good just as you're about to clash into the other enemy. So next up, we've got Stand Your Ground, which is a sort of basic one a lot of leaders get, and it's a very good buff to all your troops around you, damage, attack, and leadership improvements. And then we've got the War. Now, the War in Orcs live to fight. They love it. There's no reason for it, they just enjoy it. And every now and then there'll be all these clans dotted across the wastelands, and they'll feel it rising in them. It's just this sort of instinct that they have, and they'll feel the war rising, and what they'll do is they'll sort of almost migrate and meet up with all these other clans that normally they might fight with, but they become this massive force to wreak havoc on the old world. And it just happens every now and then. So this is an ability in the game that basically targets himself and allies within 40 meters, and does everybody does a ton more damage. 34 damage is really good, and 8 leadership. Now let's have a look at him in action. Just have a look at him pretty close up. Yeah, he's a good looking chap. Right, so we're going to have a quick look at him in action. I'm just playing a little skirmish game. As I said, I can guarantee we're going to break at some point. We're going to get rooted because he's on his own. We're up against 3 units. Even if he's doing a lot of damage, he's gonna scare at some point. This is why you don't send him off your own. This guy is frontline casting spells. So first, I'm going to show you the Purple Sun. We're not quite in range, so we're going to cast it sort of there. Like I said, it has random movement once you've cast it. So this is to disrupt the enemy just before. So people are just getting sucked in, sucked all about, sucked off, all types of suckage. And imagine doing that just before you attack, which is ridiculous. So next up, we're going to go with our Fate of Boona, which is our good against big units. And we'll see the energy life force sucking them out, sucking them off. A lot of sucking going on in this, guys. Here we go. So you can see their hit points here. And it is just starting to drop. Absolutely superb. So, like I said, look at my guy here. His morale is already halfway because he's facing so many opposition. So I probably won't even be able to charge because he's going to panic, isn't he, on his own? He's not the bravest of souls in the world. Right, so now he's doing some damage. And he's a bit happier about it. I probably should have done the Foe Seeker. Let's just whack them all on. Let's make him tough. So, as he goes and kills people, what we'll talk about is how you use him in a battle. So, for me personally, being a spellcaster, I use him in fights, but I wouldn't just commit him like you would do Grimgor Ironhide. I think you definitely want to pick and choose your fights. Maybe use him as a secondary charge. Look, he's about to break, you see, because he's just getting overwhelmed by numbers. And I'd use him as on the main front line, just behind that main front line, casting his spells, disrupting the enemy with that Purple Sun, and then as they close in, use him as a flank charge and use him to break units. That's how I sort of use it. There he goes, he's off and running like a little girly girl. Right, the last thing I want to mention is I can't remember the name of the Augment, which basically gives 200 meters away, gives one of your units fear. What this is really useful for is if you've got, say, a couple of units of boar boys on the left flank, and their job is to sort of circle the enemy and go for the archers, go for the artillery crews, that sort of thing, is cast that augment on your boar boys, and they will have a much easier time breaking those artillery units, breaking those archer units, just because of them causing fear. Right, there we go, guys. I think we're all about summed up on Azhag and his little buddy Skullmuncha. Like I said, it's an interesting character. He's a bit fighty, but think of him as a mage first. Those spells are really, really powerful and boosting your allies as well. please check out my other videos. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it. I'm doing every single unit in the game, and then we're going to go on to some more advanced tactics and stuff like that. Thank you very much for watching, guys. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.